So Bryan McLemore, I actually, the most that we've really met, we met one time, but it was, gosh, I want to say
5 years.
well,
Maybe.
before then, it was like 8, 9 years ago.
Wow.
We had put out some disc, like we were marketing disc, and all of a sudden you send a message. And at that time, you were consulting, and you had a men's group, and you wanted to do the disc. And from that relationship, it was 8, 9. And we
Yeah.
went into, we used it with Christ for Nations, with all of the team members that you had.
Right.
And then we got to meet you we had you come in for a TCU, watch, a little bit of a thing. But most of our relationship has always been just whether it's email,
Yeah.
phone calls. And you are someone that I admire and I respect. And just to give the people a little bit of background who don't know you. So you are the chair of the Global Missions Christ Church for the Nations in Dallas. You are also the founder for Level Up Renovation. So you employ, it is talented college people who they do painting and renovation to help pay for tuition.
Yep.
And then this year, just recently, you were hired as the leadership development for a Fairchild PC firm in Dallas. So you have so many hats. Like, how do you keep balance?
Yeah, I'm learning that right now. I'd rather be busy than bored, right?
Right. How does that go with the family?
Oh yeah. So for me, and because you know me, I'm a high S personality. So family to me is everything.
Yeah.
And so that's scheduled first. And then I put the rest of the responsibilities in after that. And so yeah, I've got to keep it first or nothing else works.
Right.
For sure.
Mama's not happy, kids aren't happy, and you're not happy.
It's really not. Everything flows from the home in my life. If I'm not doing well with my wife, or if there's tension with my kids, it translates into my meetings. It translates into my classes with my students, into my clients, even into my painters and my electricians. There's tension. And so I keep those accounts really clear. And the way I do that is just time, texts, phone calls. We have so much technology today that I can stay pretty connected and involved in their lives. But it is a lot of hats, and I'm moving into a new season of life. And so I'm learning, just like everybody else is, how to balance all this.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when I asked you what your topic is, because I always I put it out to the people that I interview, because I want you to be passionate about it so that we can learn from you. And you were talking about mobilizing people to be top performers. And just listening to you and knowing all these hats. And a lot of times people, when they have so many hats, they squirrel, and they definitely don't have that balance. So one gets one focus, one gets another focus. How did you were you always that way, or did you teach yourself how to truly be able to put things in little buckets and make sure everything's, the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed?
Well, I'm definitely more of a breath, like a wide angle view from above. I have people around me that I hire or bring in that can help me with the details. You hire to your weaknesses. And so I've got some amazing people that are around me, and they really help with those little things. And if I could just brag a little bit about you, Mary, and Eric, and the whole Driven Leadership team. I've been doing this teaching and working with churches and nonprofits for about 25 years. And when we first heard about you and we were talking about an assessment tool, I just needed help so bad. I felt like you guys really came in and saved the day, and worked with me. And it's funny because you would give me these DISC assessments, and you would even give them to me. And I don't know if I should tell everybody, but you gave them to me at a little bit of a discount, and just to help us with our budget, not knowing that I'm going to be emailing you like every day. What does this mean? What does this mean? And Mary and Eric were just unbelievably supportive. And I've probably seen 1,000 students between California training schools and here in Texas that have been a part in some way of y'all's influence through me and with these schools. And so I'm so grateful for you guys and Driven Leadership. You've really made an impact on my life.
Oh, thanks,
You
Bryan.
guys are awesome.
Well, and it's, I really believe in just the whole philosophy of givers gain. It's the helping people, and so we get into the disc and the intermetrics and the value. I'm such a high altruist, which so are you. And the high altruist just wants to give and give and give and
Yeah.
just help and serve and serve and serve. And then Eric is the high economic, and he's lower on the altruist. Not that he doesn't like people, but he's like, what's the return on investment? And
Yeah. Yeah.
so give us, just a little bit. I gave a little bit of background, but how did you end up doing what you do? I mean, as a child, were you really clear on what you wanted to do when you grew up?
You know, nothing could be further from what I'm doing now. My mom would describe me as a hellion. That's probably the Southern word.
Okay.
I was always in trouble, always about me and selfish. And a matter of fact, I told a neighbor once when I was in college and I started to study more about helping others. And I was even involved in a school that trained ministers. And I was telling my neighbor about it. And he looked at me and he said, I thought you'd be in jail by now.
Oh,
And I was like, what? And he reminded me, I'd put a frog in his mailbox and a firecracker. And he reminded me of all of the crazy things I had done growing up. And I don't know, Mary, I honestly don't know. I couldn't have been further. But today, everything about my life is changed. I really do get excited about seeing other people achieve even more than me. If somebody gets a bonus check or somebody gets a great new client because of our coaching or our teaching, I feel like it's mine. I feel like I'm just as excited as if I had gotten it. And I don't know what happened, but it just totally different. When I was little, I think my biggest aspiration was to be a ninja.
that's awesome.
Yeah. And so I prayed that God would make me a ninja. And that was about it.
But you're a warrior and ninja for people now.
There you see, you would always turn it around good. There, that's exactly right.
So I put a firecracker in someone's locker too at school.
Yeah.
The times a teenager when you're figuring out who you are and you're bucking the system, and thank God for grace and second chances, and we get to step in. So who were some of your major influencers, your mentors, to help you actually start this path?
My parents are unbelievable. My mom and dad are the hardest workers. They own a cleaning company here in Arlington, Texas. And still to this day, they're running that company. Before that, my dad was in corporate America, and he worked for a company called Reynolds and Reynolds. And it was a large national printing company. And back when we had printers, everything's online nowadays. But I watched my dad climb the corporate ladder, go from literally like a custodian to the plant manager. And then they transferred him to another plant because he was such a good turnaround artist, excellent with systems. And I watched him when that company began to decline because we didn't need as much printing. They ended up laying him off, as well as, most of the plant managers, because they were going digital. He went to another plant, same thing, climbed the ladder, another company. And I watched that happen over and over. And, you talk about what kind of influences I had growing up, watching him, such a good man, hardworking man, pour into these companies. And it wasn't like it wasn't fruitful for him, but to see the production of it, and then the constant, just almost emptiness at the end of the line when things would shut down. I think that really affected me, and it turned my mind more from building things to building people. And I think that was the shift, was I really asked myself that question, like, what is eternal? Like, what am I going to do that isn't going to close?
Right.
And it came down to, it's got to be investing in people, and the rest will follow. You know, businesses will come and go. But if I can impact people, then that's what I want my life to mean something for. So that's kind of how I shifted, I think, to that. And he's been my role model to this day. My mom is one of my biggest role models. You know who else is a role model? Did you ever watch Little House on the Prairie?
Oh my gosh, that was my favorite.
Charles
Yes.
Ingle.
Yes.
Charles Ingle.
Monday nights.
Andy Griffin.
Yeah.
Charles Ingle. Mr. Huxtable. You know, it's funny, but I was thinking through, they were big influences as a kid, you know, teaching you to be honest and take care of other people. And so there you go. There's some of those types of folks too.
I love that. So, you know, talking back, going back to your father, you know, and I see this a lot of times where people, they pour into a company and they pour and they pour and they pour, you know, blood, sweat, tears, things happen. And,
Yeah.
you know, either they shut down, roles change, there's acquisitions.
Especially
How
right now.
did your dad ever become bitter? Like, did he ever, because a lot of times with that, there's so much discouragement and frustration that people become bitter, and it's harder for them to re-engage in another.
Yeah, there were ups and downs. But this man, it was unbelievable. He just doesn't quit. Him and my mom, it was one thing, they just never say quit or that's enough. There may be some bad days, but the next day is, let's get the resume. Let's get moving. And I mean, that was a huge impact in my life. You know, remember Henry Ford? They were standing outside watching one of his plants burn back in the early 1900s. And I remember that when he said, you can take my buildings and we'll build them right back. As long as I have my people, I can't be set back for long. And I feel like that sort of spirit is embodied with those that have been around me, the leaders I've had, the pastors, the teachers, the coaches, my parents. That's always stuck to me when I saw people that could go through, you know, a horrible situation and not quit.
That's
like,
so
there's more.
powerful.
There's more.
Yeah. You know, and it is when you can separate and go, wait, it is about the people. Sure, we have a company, and we'll have business owners, you know, leaders on here, individuals, and when we can separate the process and the system and really connect to the why and the people, and then through them create a better process and system, you will always have that foundation. It is the people. So when you look at, you know, the mobilizing people for top or being top performers, what does a top performer mean to you?
You have like the quintessential definition in your mind. It's the person that's hitting the high margins, that's always hitting the goals. It's the achiever, the go-getter. But I honestly think what I'm learning more and more, to me, a top performer is that person that doesn't quit. Everything is figure outable to them. And because there's times when you just don't perform, like COVID, right? I mean, you have some amazing leaders who are talented, they have the resources, and it's just been, you know, a blow up. And it's not their fault. And so they're going to come back. And I think those are your top performers, are the people that they don't stop. And they've learned what their niche is, that they have value, and that they're contributing, even if it's a little bit, you know, they're contributing their part to humanity, and they're giving back that piece that no one else could give. And I feel like those are the people you need around you. Those are your top performers. And those are the people I want around me. When a job site and the construction company starts to go bad, I need those guys on site that are the type that are like, well, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. And because you can, when you have that little bit of hope, when you have a top performer person around, life just, there's nothing that can set you back too bad. You just, because people are believing we can figure this out. Okay, let's figure this out. Make a few phone calls, ask a few questions, and all of a sudden we're back on track. And what used to maybe set me back for weeks or get me down is now it's just you have those people around you. So that was a long way to say I think the top performers are contributing and they just don't quit.
So how do you develop people who aren't top performers into being a top performer? Because a
Wow.
company is made up with so many people and you have all different ranks and talents and gifts and skills.
Yeah, man. And for some people, it seems like a never ending process. And for others, I've watched turnarounds. And a lot of it comes down to me speaking life to them.
Mm.
You know, there are people that carry this idea that nothing is going to change, that good things are not coming to them. And I can hand them $100 bill and it's a negative. Like, oh, I guess I got to pay tax on this. You know, like that's the mindset, right? And so I think that I help people move towards that next level in their life when I speak life to them, when I model it, when we as leaders model it, when we set up our culture as a wins, like we celebrate wins. What happened to celebrating, you know, in the business place? Where are the balloons and the hats and the parties?
Right.
You know, at some point we got to say, let's celebrate Sheila. You know, she did it. And I think when you do that, you start people realizing maybe something good can happen. So speaking life is super key. And of course, I teach. I do a lot of teaching. I teach about the down and out folks. I teach the Michael Jordan story that we all love. He didn't make the high school team, but you know, he's the greatest ever. You teach them those principles, um, and then we try to model it on the job sites. Whenever my guys call me, sometimes I've had guys call me. It's funny, you'll have these pretty grizzly type dudes, you know, you've probably seen them working and you're like, man, that's a mean dude. I've had guys call me with tears in their eyes because they realized the mistake they made was a $10,000 mistake, and there's no solution. And so I know my response to them in that moment is more important than the $10,000. You know, I've just done it enough to know we'll probably figure out how to figure out that $10,000. We'll figure that out. But this person, if I respond with, all right, Bob, tell me how we're going to figure this out, it changes the mindset to, I can't do anything right, woe is me, to, oh, maybe I should start thinking about how to figure this out.
Yeah. So have you ever wanted it more than someone else wanted it? Because, you know, you talk about speaking life into them, and I look at the state of the world now where mental health issues are so prevalent in a way that we haven't seen before. There's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of discouragement, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of you know.
Yeah.
So have you ever been challenged with, oh my gosh, I just want to speak life, but this person isn't getting it?
Yes. And probably more so now. And I've even been that person. I mean, we're in seasons of life, right? And there are some seasons where I've been through that I can remember. I could not see a light at the end of the tunnel. And I had great leaders in my life, and I remember one of them hugging me. He was in college and one of the deans, and we had a really tight relationship, and he was a coach on one of the athletic teams as well. And And he knew I was just going through a really down spot. And and as he's hugging me, I remember speaking to him and saying, I don't receive this this caring and love. I don't deserve it. And I don't know what, I can't remember exactly what had triggered it, but I was so down on myself. And I remember saying that to him audibly, and him giving me even a harder squeeze anyways. He's like, I'm going to give it to you anyway. And when he left, I just remembered, man, I must be the worst person in the world, because why? Why can't I shake this? So knowing what it's like to be on that end, when I'm dealing with somebody that isn't responding, I know it's probably a matter of time, and I can't let their response dictate my effort. I'm going to be me, and I'm going to speak life and love them and move them towards the next level. And sooner or later, they're either going to begin to come out of that season and move, hopefully. But it is an internal thing, right? I mean, like, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And that is so true. And so there are some people that I recognize, especially students, that just aren't getting it. And so as a leader, it helps me to know that this is a long-term project, maybe. So I don't get as anxious.
So what are some of the tools that you use to change your approach?
Well, the 80-20 principle. I definitely, I need to see people, just personally, I need to see movement, right? With all the effort that we're putting out there. So I will put the majority of my energy into those people that are responding, knowing that it's their season to grow, and I need to give them everything I can. And those that are kind of around the peripheral in the classes or in the staffs, I'm still going to give them my best, but it won't be as much time. And until it's almost like they have to take a step in, I'm always there. Yeah. Bryan's always here. I'm going to give you the best. I'll give you as much as you want, but I'm not going to force feed it.
Yeah.
And so that's how my approach sort of shifts a little bit. And then I just look for, there's always those linchpin moments with a person. It's amazing how somebody, and even somebody listening to this right now, can feel like the world is on their shoulders. And then in a moment, everything be lifted. And so those that are on the peripheral, I watch for those linchpin moments and major life happenings that I could be a support in. And just, sometimes people see problems with those folks that are just not getting it. And then they have another problem on top of that, like they're not painting correctly in my construction business, or they're not, as a student, they're not turning in their work. Well, you can see that as opportunities to speak into them and to teach, give a little bit more help, to show them I'm not going to cast you aside. I'm going to give you another chance. And sometimes that breaks through. We just never know which tap is going to break through. It's my job as a leader just to keep tapping.
Well, and it's the consistency. It's the tap, it's the drip of the water, and all of a sudden it's like, whoo, puts the whole, bores the whole. When you were saying about sometimes, leading the horse to the water, I had a coach that said, I will fight with you. I will fight for you as long as you're willing to do the work. If you don't do the work, then I'm out. And I'll never forget that. And it was such a huge lesson. But at the same time, when I was struggling, there were times that she didn't let me go. She wasn't fighting as hard because she needed me to step in, exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
And it's that balance, right? As a leader, when we run an organization, when we lead teams, when we have these influence, we have to know, first and foremost, I believe as a leader, we have to know and fill up ourselves, because we can't give what we don't have.
Right.
And then figuring out each person, where are they at? What do they need? How can I come alongside them? And then sometimes they fit, and sometimes it's a season and they get to move on to another
It is.
opportunity.
Yeah. And they get to the next business or next boss, and boom, they're a different person.
Right,
But you did all the work.
right. So, going into your topic, mobilizing people to be top performers, what does that mean?
Yeah, mobilizing to is it's a little different because it for me, we literally for about 8 years, we took teams overseas to do all kinds of humanitarian efforts. So I was literally mobilizing logistically over 3,000 people in 5 years onto different continents to do construction, medical, and different outreach projects. And what I began to learn is as I transitioned more into teaching and owning a business, it's very similar. And the more I can learn about the person, I think mobilization begins with, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. So I need to establish with them, I believe that they can do something great towards this project or this business. And I do. I truly do. I'm not making that up. I think everybody's got a 10 above their head. They've got potential. Are they ready to ascribe, reach for it or not? That's up to them. But I believe it, and they need to know that. So when I'm mobilizing, I start with believing in them, and then I dig a little bit, like with the assessments you have really brought into my life. I've been using them at Christ for the Nations for years now. It's an amazing school in Dallas, Texas, and they have allowed me to teach there. And so these students are coming in, and they're all going to launch out into their destinies. And part of that mobilizing point is to show them who they are, show them where their bents are, their proclivities are, their values. And I think that's really key as a boss, as a leader, that I know a little. I'm involved in their life enough to know some of their strengths. I'm not just, they don't just get a paycheck from me.
Right.
Right. And that takes time. That's the hard thing is, so for me, it's easy. The way I do it is I'll go out to lunch a lot. And it's actually,
you're in
an
Texas,
issue.
you're not shut down.
Yes. Right. Oh, thank God for Governor Abbott. I tell you what, I don't know what I would do. I don't know how you're surviving. But anyway, so yeah, when do you get time to do these assessments and dig into people's lives in your company, I think after we would finish a job, like I would go and do quality control on a job and my guys would be cleaning up. And I say, hey, who wants to go to Chili's? It's on me. And I'll take some of the profit from the job and I'll use that to take them out to a nice lunch or dinner or something. And I will have the questions in mind, so where are you from? Tell me about where are you going? Where do you see your life going? And it's amazing. It's amazing the people's stories. And I just feel so honored sometimes that I have these people around me in my life that someone else would just see an electrician. But this guy's writing a book, this guy's traveled all over South Africa, or there's these amazing stories that people have. And the more I know, the more I can kind of start to steer and know how to pour into them. And that's what I think mobilizing people is. And it may not always be with my company, which is a sad thing. I want to keep everybody that's awesome. But sometimes you just know this isn't their forever. And so we're gonna pour into you as much as we can before it's time.
You bring up the assessments, and I always tell people, like, we use it with everything. And it is because it gives you a tool to understand, oh my gosh, this is what they need. This is how they think. This is what they value.
Yeah.
Yet it's not to manipulate. It really is to understand. Yet you're doing something even deeper, is that you're having that connection. You're figuring out what drives you. Tell me a little bit about you. because in this time, maybe we go back into the mental health, more than ever, people just want to know that they are valued, that they
Yes.
have value, that they're seen, that they're heard. And to come alongside and just say, hey, I'm your support structure. I might not be able to figure it out for you, but I'm going to listen and I'm going to be here. And
Yeah.
I mean, that will literally change somebody's life. It will change a company. Just to
Yeah.
know, again, it doesn't matter how much you know, it's about how much you care.
Yeah. Value, and the way we ascribe it as a leader, a lot of times is just being honest.
Yeah.
I think some people that have gone through COVID, um, and they're not getting communication from the top, and they're just doing their job, and they don't know if they're going to have it tomorrow, and everybody's on pins and needles, and things keep changing. I had a boss in that I worked for that mobilization organization in California. His name is Steve Edwards, and we went through a down spell. We had some kind of crazy travel restrictions back in 2003. I forget what happened, but um, we couldn't travel to parts of Europe and different places. So a lot of our teams were canceled, and that revenue was gone. We weren't making a ton anyway. A lot of it was a nonprofit, but all of a sudden we weren't going to be getting some salary for several months. And so um, Steve sat down with me and a few of our staff, and he said, "This is what's happening." And he was just honest. And he said, I'm gonna not be able to pay you your full salary, and we're gonna only be able to do this much because we were already in the summer, we were already launching out. This was no time. And so he just came and was honest. And you know what it did? It made me feel respected
Yeah.
by him, and it totally made me want to be a part of that summer. And it's amazing. I mean, we were provided for. You know, it always works out. And and then I found out for those 3 months he wasn't taking a paycheck.
Mm,
Well, now what did that do for me? I was loyal to him to a fault.
right.
Like, I'm never leaving this company. If somebody cares that much and values me that much,
Mm,
you're going to have to beat me out of this company with a stick, because I will fight for this man. And so I've always tried to instill value by just being real honest and straightforward, even with my own struggles. Like, if I'm in a bind with a client, I'll bring some of my guys that have worked with that client before and say, man, I don't know what to do with this. And I might even show them the numbers, which is another way to show value.
mm.
Um, be
Open book.
honest.
Yeah. Authenticity. Open book.
Yeah. Yeah. And they find out what they made and what the company makes. And that's nothing to be embarrassed about. The more they understand, um, it's amazing. It endears them to our organization. It doesn't drive them away. And so I think communicating adds value, being honest, and not expecting your people to do anything you wouldn't do.
Right.
And I'm watching all these executives right now during COVID. You're seeing the golden parachutes, and you're seeing these guys um, just expecting so much of staff that it's when you see the wealthy person making the video, wishing everybody else in America, oh, this is a hard lockdown. And they're in this palatial cabin with 3 servants handing them ice cream. And, you're just like, you have no idea. But yeah, just being willing as a leader to don't expect anything from them that you're not willing to also go through.
So talking about, the top performers and creating them within businesses, and we bring up COVID, like this isn't going away anytime soon.
Right.
There's people here who have companies. Some of them are actually growing. Some of them are stagnant. Some of them are not where they want to be. And they all have these top performers. What are your suggestions or thoughts around how do you still continue to add value to your top performers when you can't move them into different positions or give them pay raises?
Right. I think right now you can spend more time with them. And I know that's not going to help necessarily their bottom line, but um, it's across the board. The PPP, the different things that are, we have another round of PPP coming out. Those are opportunities as a good leader that we need to take advantage of to help our staffs. And if we can, like AFairchild PC, that's the office I'm in right now. She's actually thrived during COVID. The company that I'm here with right now is amazing, and they made a decision to just invest in their people, and they bought laptops like the one I'm using right now, so that some of the accountants and different staff folks can work from home and save that expense of commuting and wardrobe and the time and all the things. As long as the work's done, everything's good. And I think that was just a huge thing that they were able to do during this time, to value their top performers. Just equip them.
Equip them. So what happens if you have an individual who's a top performer, or they view themselves as a top performer, and they work for a company that doesn't recognize that? How do they grow? How do they develop? How do they put themselves in a place where they can be mobilized?
I think it's easy to get outward focused when you don't feel appreciated. And let's be honest, a lot of us have worked in jobs where we weren't appreciated and taken advantage of even. And I think if we see it as seasons, and we know who we allow ourselves to continue to not be outward focused, but to compete with ourselves. Okay, there's an old saying in sports that my coaches used to tell me, is that, Bryan, great athletes compete with others, but champions compete with themselves. And I always try to instill that in my kids and in my students. You're going to be in it's just the way it is. You're going to be around folks that don't see your potential. So you have to see your potential, and you have to know who you are. And the way you do that is you get around those who see it. You create your network of people that are going to strengthen you up. And you don't have to necessarily see yourself in your current position forever. There is going to be next steps all along your life. And so in this season, take it as a negative learning experience, that now you know how it feels when you're not appreciated. And so one day when you're the boss, you're going to work extra hard to make sure your people really know that they're loved and cared for, and you appreciate them. I don't know if that helps, but yeah, I think a lot of top performers, a lot of people probably feel undervalued. Yeah. And I think we have to get our eyes off of expecting our value to come from other people. We have to learn to value ourselves. And that's a process. That's a whole webinar in itself.
It's so true, though, because if we're outward focused, we're never filled up. If we're always looking to be validated, to be valued, we're missing. We have to connect here. I saw a quote just recently. It's going to go on one of our memes, and it says, it's not about being the best on the team. It's being the best for the team. Mm. And when we're able to shift our mindset and say, okay, and it goes along the line, it's not about me, and a lot of times top performers, like, we put in the work, we're the ones that we fall down, we get back up, we fall down, we get back up. It's like, okay, I'm going to do the work, and we're not being recognized. But when we can shift it and say, okay, how can I influence? What can I do to truly be the best for the team, So as a top performer, I believe as a top performer, we have a different level of responsibility because we're the ones that are helping other people rise up with us.
Yeah.
And and we always look at how do you even put more into a top performer because they do have that influence. But again, it's not about I'm here and you're here. It's how do I get the rest of my team to come alongside of us?
Yes. The best for the team. That's it. Yeah. And building, my coach said it like this, because I played soccer in college, and he would always tell me, because I was a ball hog. I was a striker and I wanted the ball and I wanted to shoot it. And so I would always miss passing lanes that I should have taken. And he would tell me, he would say, Bryan, all you care about is your candle burning brighter than everybody else. You'll even blow out other people's candles so yours burns brighter.
Oh, that's painful.
And he goes, when are you going to allow all of our candles? And it was just it was like, you're right. I never thought about it like that. If we all are lit up, we'll be a lot brighter. And it was we're a lot more potent together as a team.
I love that analogy.
Isn't that
Oh
funny?
my gosh. Right? You blow out everyone else's candles just so you can
I'm
stay
literally
lit.
blowing out your candle so I look brighter.
Wow.
And yeah. So as a top performer, it's not about you. You're hitting all your marks, great, but the company's still sinking because you got 20 other sales guys that just can't get it. If you would turn around for 10 minutes and just say, let me help you with your presentation. Yeah, they might edge in on your record or whatever, but you're going to make the whole organization better.
Right. There's two different talks here, because as a business leader, it's how do you help mobilize and grow your top performers, but then you're a top performer and how are you showing up? And I love the dichotomy, like it just marries so well together, and we all have a responsibility to step in, to step up, and as leaders, walking our talk, living our talk, and not always being perfect, but owning it. So I would love to know because you've started so many nonprofits, you've founded so many, in the business world, businesses, you've worked with so many leaders and individuals. Did you ever just like, this is not working? What were some of your biggest, like, hitting that wall failures?
Oh, so many to choose from. I'm that guy that I will just kind of jump in and see what's under the water rather than poking with a stick to make sure it's safe. And so I don't know. I think I probably got that from my parents again. But so I moved my entire family to Boston, Massachusetts. This is my wife. It was just at the time, it was me and my wife. We ended up having our son there. And we joined this team that was going to plant an outreach center in Boston back in '97. And there was, at that time, it was horrible issues with youth on the streets. Just, it was a bad time for the city at that time. And so we were going in, eventually even had a grant from the city, but not yet. So we're like, yeah, we're going to go plant this outreach center. We're also starting a church, and we were going to work with some after school programs and all this kind of stuff. Well, we get there and there's nowhere. The guy that was setting us, kind of working with us, had not been completely honest, and there was no place to stay. And so we end up staying in his attic with the mice literally running on us while we're asleep. This is me and my newlywed. I've been married a month, and we're sharing our marriage bed with the mice. And all we had to our name was like a box of cereal. And I had the cereal on our nightstand, and I woke up one morning and a mouse's head stuck his head out, and I was like, no, not my cereal. And Yeah. So we ended up moving from his attic to his couch, and then to some other people that had moved out to help with the center. We moved into their spare room and got kicked out of there because in Boston everything was like brownstones, and so the landlord said, "Oh, too many people in there. You got to leave." And ended up having to go back home after about 6 months of just trying to do this and get our bearings. And we had to raise support to even be there at the time, and that wasn't coming in very well. So I think we were bringing in like $75 a week.
Wow.
And so, I mean, those are the times that you're really forged, and either you're going to do what you believe is the right thing to do, come hell or high water, or you're going to just flow where the least path of resistance is.
Sure.
And I thank God we had good people around us that said, Bryan and Dorie, my wife is Dorie, and she really is, she's the grit behind a lot of what we've accomplished. She is a never quit person too. And they told us, if this is what you guys feel like we felt it was a calling. It was more than just a good thing to do. It was a cause that had us. So we went back. We went back and we went back. It was sort of like we made a commitment. We were going to spend 2 years here, no matter what. No matter what. And we had this image of our feet being in concrete. And so we ended up planting that outreach center. We ended up planting that church. I took some courses, and we were working with the youth. And you know what? 5 years ago, one of those kids from 25 years ago, one of the kids he's grown up. He's like this big business consultant. He flies all over the world, and he flew in through Dallas, and he took us out to dinner. And this was a kid that was living on the street.
Wow.
in Boston. And there was 40 other stories like that where we were able to see an impact. We were able to see that the church is still there. The outreach center is still there. The Boys and Girls Club funds a lot of it. There's a school there, but it wasn't easy to start, right? And we learned our lesson early in our careers that anything worthwhile that's significant comes with great sacrifice.
Yeah.
And it's just the way it is. There's no other way. And so for those folks that are out there that just feel like you're hitting a wall, you need to step back and smile and say, yep, that's what it takes. I'm going to pound this wall until it falls, because that's what it takes. There's no easy way, And so, and so just over and over stuff like that through our lives.
But that goes back into belief. I mean, you believed so strongly in a dream, in a vision, and a passion, and a calling. And I see over and over when people hit walls and they have adversity, there's two options. Either they quit or they push through. And usually the ones that quit, there's excuses, there's justification, there's blaming, it's the bitter.
Yeah.
The push through it goes back in what you're talking about, what you believe a top performer is it something within that has this fight, this fire, this belief that no matter what, I'm going to get back up. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to figure it out, but it's not going to stop me.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many folks that have become experts at apologies and blame for why they're quitting. And it almost sounds good. Like, yeah, you should have quit. Like we're getting so good at that. But at the same time, Mary, I have to tell you, some of these young people that are coming through my classes, I have to say, they are filled with dreams and tenacity. And I have students right now living overseas that are working with students. I have one girl living in the Amazon in Colombia, and she is working with trafficked women and children. And she was a business professional here in North Texas that was doing great with an insurance company, and just felt like there's more. I want to, and there's some tenacity and never say die in this generation. And I just hope we don't mess it up. I think we need to keep challenging our people. We need to keep expecting them to keep taking steps toward the goals, and stop rewarding, this risk averse sort of safety first. Since when is safety first for anybody who's tried to build something? You know, yeah, we want to be safe, but it ain't first. There's no such thing as safety first when you're building something. Safety is like eighth. You got to go in. You got to go all in. And so I think there's a great generation coming too.
That's awesome. So I'm going to put it out. If anyone has any questions or comments as we get ready to end this, would you put that in the chat? I'm also able to see on Facebook as well. So in regards, and I just want to tie this in, because when you were talking about the tenacity, the vision, the story of Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, came in. Did you ever read that book, Think and Grow Rich?
What was it?
Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
No.
Where he talks about stopping 3 feet from gold.
Oh, no, I haven't heard that.
Oh my God. So it goes back into a belief, a dream. So, as a top performer, whoever you are, you have a dream, you have a belief. So way back in the gold rush days, there was a guy named R.U. Darby, and R.U. Darby had an uncle who had gold fever. So he wasn't really passionate about mining or, the gold mining process. He just wanted to get rich. So he packs up, goes to Colorado, takes R.U. Darby. They start mining gold, and they get some gold, and they go and they look, they take it in, and it's the highest quality. And they're like, oh my gosh, we just struck rich, So they cover it up. They go back to Boston, raise a bunch of money from their family and friends. And they're like, we are going to be rich. So they come back with the money to help them mine more. They're mining, they get, a cartload, and then it's gone. And they can't find it. He wasn't passionate about gold mining. He gets discouraged. And so what he does is he sells the mine to he was an engineer. And this guy was junk man. He was so passionate about mining. He had actually done all this research, and he was just waiting for his right opportunity. So he buys the mine for literally peanuts and hires an engineer to come in. And the engineer goes, well, gold runs in veins. And what they did is they mined through the vein. So if you go back to where they stopped and where they found the gold, and you go this way, you'll actually find the gold. Sure enough, 3 feet from where they quit mining, they found the wealthiest gold mine in history.
Oh my gosh.
And I always think about that story, is that when we have a dream, when we have a belief, when we have something that we're passionate about, and life gets hard and we come up against those walls and businesses fail, or we can't go to where we want, but we still have a belief, it is never stopping 3 feet from gold.
Yeah.
It is figuring out, you find the experts. Where did I miss it? Ask for feedback, right?
Yeah.
And when you do that, you reconnect, which is, your dream with Boston in the community center. And as a result, it changed that kid's life.
Yeah. Yes. That's so good. Yeah. You can't quit. I mean, we've heard it a million times. I love the Winston Churchill speech where he says, never, 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 like 25 times, quit at that graduation service. And that's it. That has got to be, I guess, especially in our time right now, our world, that's got to be one of the number one qualities of our top performers.
So last notes, final thoughts. I always say this is like your podium, your soapbox. What's
Mm-hmm.
the message that you want to get out? Anything that you haven't said or that you want to add on to? What are your closing thoughts?
I would just tell whoever's watching, if you're hitting a wall or if it feels like you're not getting anywhere, don't give up.
Mm,
There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and there is hope. Hope is the most powerful force that you can muster. Just try to get a little bit of hope, and all of a sudden you'll start seeing opportunities. You'll start seeing where the door's cracked, and maybe you can get that thing open. It just takes a little hope. And a lot of times we don't think about what we're thinking about. And our thoughts can put us in a cell if we let them. And a lot of times we wonder, why did I get to this place of feeling hopeless and depressed? Well, it comes after months of thoughts pounding you with there's no hope. And so I want to just compel you today, if you're watching, there is a hope. I promise you that if you can just hang on to a positive thought and just repeat it, even if it makes you feel crazy, just say it in your car, say it at home, come up with your own little mantra. Good things are coming today. Good things are coming today. Go for your treadmill run. Good things are coming today. Good thing. Say it for your prayer at dinner and see what happens. You'll be shocked at how you'll start to see the good. We always see what we're thinking about. We attract what we're meditating on. It's like when we went to buy a car, we wanted to buy a Honda Odyssey minivan. We couldn't afford it, so we were saving up. But we saw Honda Odysseys everywhere because all of a sudden we thought, does everybody have a Honda Odyssey? And it's because it was something that became a desire of our heart. And I'm telling you, you will see the things that are the desires of your heart. And you'll start to have a little bit of a light come at the end of that tunnel. And so I just encourage you today, this too shall pass. If you're going through a struggle, it will not be forever. And you are going to come out on the other side. And when you come out on the other side, you're going to be wiser and you're going to be tougher and grittier and stronger. And the next time that thing comes your way, you're going to know how to knock it down. And so just keep moving forward, keep going. And I believe in you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Love that. Don't lose hope. So I have a final poll up here, just feedback for those of you who are still on here. And again, I just want to thank you, Bryan, for saying yes. There's no coincidences whatsoever. Our paths were supposed to cross so many years ago.
Yes.
And just your inspiration, your insight, your just sharing your heart. I know I was absolutely touched. And I'm so thankful that you said yes. And I'm excited when you get to come to Bold one of these days.
Yes. That is my next dream is to get out there.
That's right.
Yes. And I'm so thankful you guys are in my life. Mary, you guys have been a huge, huge impact and blessing to Christ for the Nations. And here at AFairchild, we're using your assessments here. And we're looking forward to in the end of April in Zooming you in. And I can't wait to see what else happens. And I can't wait. You guys are helping me get certified with DISC too. So that now I can be dangerous with these assessments.
There you go. Good. Good. Well, thanks again, Bryan. Have an amazing day. And everyone, we will see you next Tuesday at 9:00 with Anika Howard.
Awesome.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.